What if you could remember anything, even the names of 2,400 fallen heroes from the Afghanistan War? In this powerful episode, we sit down with Ron White, two-time U.S. memory champion, Navy intelligence veteran, and superhuman. And in this episode, he gets really vulnerable, and he also teaches us how anyone can memorize. Even at 50 and beyond, our processing doesn't have to slow down as much. And he's going to share what he does and some really incredible stories that include being on TV, speaking all over the world, and where he gave his favorite speech.
Wait to hear the story of him and Mike Tyson on the TV show he was on. Phenomenal story there. So well said, Kelly. Let's get to it. Okay, we are back, episode number 26. We got a great guest for you. We're going to talk about literally memory. The dude we have on here, Ron White, is got a great story he's going to share with you. And without further ado, Ron, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, man, no problem. I've known Kelly for a decade at least, I'd say, and she's a great person in my life, and I've heard good things about you, so happy to be here today.
I was going to say 9 years, but you're the memory guy, so I'm going to trust 12 because you probably remember better than me. Actually, I remember the first time I met you, I said, "Hey, I'm Kelly," and you said, "I know." I was like, clearly you had met me before. I didn't remember, but you did.
Well, I think it was probably I had seen you on Kyle Wilson's Facebook. I think that's maybe what it
Fair.
was. Maybe I just knew who you were. You know, you're a standout kind of person, so I probably just knew who you were.
Well,
For sure. I saw that and reached out to her many moons ago and said, "Hey, you want to do this with us?" And you know, we've been going at this a long time. So Kelly, good to see you today. You look beautiful as always from your new trip that you told me. What was the place you just went to?
I was at Bald Head Island off of Southport, North Carolina, and Wilmington, and that whole area. It's beautiful, a lot of fun. Girls trip.
Excellent. All right, why don't you give Ron the proper introduction here, and we'll dig right into this so we can help everybody.
Love that. So Ron White, U.S. memory champion 2 times. He's held the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards, which was 167 seconds, and he's held it the longest. He's a Navy intelligence veteran and probably best known for memorizing the longest number and also reciting the names, which we're going to get into, of the fallen soldiers from the Afghanistan war. And he has something very special called the Memory Wall, which we're going to talk about. And he's been featured on all kinds of TV shows, from Good Morning America to Superhuman, History Channel, and has spoken on stages globally. And what I love about Ron is it's not just about showcasing his memory, which is extraordinary, but it's really about helping us, especially those of us 50 and older, to sharpen our memory, have more mental clarity and purpose. So Ron, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that very nice introduction. And I appreciate you saying USA memory champion. A lot of people introduce me as a world memory champion, and I always have to say, okay, look, there are people in the memory world who, if they hear this and they think I'm claiming I'm a world champion, I need to correct this, but you said USA memory champion, so thank you for that. And the record I held was the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in 1 minute and 27 seconds, which was 87 seconds, about 1.5 seconds a card. And it was the longest number memorized in 5 minutes at 167 digits. So there was a time frame on it. The longest number probably ever memorized is a guy in Japan, I think, who's memorized pi to around 100,000 digits, somewhere between 80 and 100,000. So, but thank you for having me on, and I'm happy to be here.
That's
So
incredible.
Ron, I know you've told this story before, but I just want to dig right into, we're recording this literally the 2 days after Memorial Day. I know you had something you did on Memorial Day live, and I know you told the story numerous times, but man, can you share the whole backstory about what you do, how you came up with this, any emotional experiences that have taken place with some of the people that have been around watching you do this? So it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, that's definitely start our interview out with a bang. That's probably my biggest. When I'm 80 years old, and I'm looking back on my life, um, they say what is move my friendships and my family and my relations to the side. Clearly, I'm those are so special to me. But when it comes to work or business accomplishments or achievements, this project is my proudest thing, my biggest, what I'll be most happy about when I'm 80 years old. And assuming I get to be 80, who knows? Hopefully I do. But bottom line, I've been doing memory seminars for 34 years. I started when I was 18, in 1991. 10 years later, I was 28. I'm sure everybody can do that math. But at the age of 28, most people don't join the military. But I went to a recruiting station shortly after September 11th, and as a response to September 11th, and with my friend Brian, we joined the military. He joined the Army. I joined the Navy because I have an IQ, and we both served for.
I get it.
We both served for 8 years as reservists. In 2005, he was deployed to Afghanistan. In 2007, I was deployed to Afghanistan. And my job in Afghanistan, I was an intelligence specialist. Every day I briefed the highest ranking intelligence officer in the country every day. I was his briefer. And every day I would give a briefing, and I would tell him all the U.S. military who were killed in action. I would tell him all the Taliban and Al-Qaeda that were killed in action. I'd give him the numbers every day. And walking back to my room at the end of every day, I was just like, man, 6 today, 12 today. Their parents are going to find out tomorrow. The next couple of days, they're going to get somebody walking up to their doorstep. And I just thought about it all the time. So when I returned from Afghanistan, and I'm going to try to speed up this story, push 2x speed. I gave a little bit more background than I normally do, but I think it's just fresh in my mind with what I did a couple days ago. So when I got back from Afghanistan, I started breaking memory records, winning tournaments, and then my records were broken. Nelson Dellis came along, Alice Mullins, Lance T-shirt came along and broke all my records. So I wanted to do something more meaningful with my memory. Not more meaningful, but more meaningful to me. And I memorized everybody who died in the war in Afghanistan from the United States in the order of their death. Imagine you were at the Vietnam Wall and you were looking at the Vietnam Wall and somebody is writing out the Vietnam Wall from memory. That's what I do, except I do it for Afghanistan. It is much smaller of a scale. We lost 59,000, 60,000 in Vietnam. Afghanistan, we lost 2,400, which is, to every single mom and dad and brother and sister, that's a huge number. Right. And that one is the biggest number of their life, that one person. So I'm not minimizing it. But it was 7,500 words, ranked first name, last name. It took me 10 months to memorize. It takes me 10 or 12 hours to write it out. And Monday on Memorial Day, I put a blindfold on and I recited. It takes 2 hours to recite. And I'll kind of pause there and turn it back over to you. I do have some stories of people who walked up to the wall and things that happened, and I'm happy to tell those. But I also hate giving a monologue. I always prefer a dialogue. So
that was the next question I was going to ask you. Obviously, the first time you do this, what goes through your head? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Or obviously both. Did you get stuck along the way? That's a lot of names, over 2,400 names to memorize. Was there a huge audience around the first time? Let's keep going, man.
Yeah, those are all very, very insightful questions, actually, and not questions that have been asked a lot. So I learned a lesson in 2000. This was 2012. In 2011, I learned a lesson the hard way. I've always been very private about my projects. Right, I was training for the USA Memory Championship in 2009. And I'd been training for it in 2008 for 3 or 4 months, and I didn't tell anybody. And it wasn't like I was trying to keep it a secret. It was just like I didn't feel the need to broadcast. I'm training for this tournament, right? And then it hit me. Except my coach, TC Cummings. I told him, there's actually been some studies on this. The people who broadcast their goals, and I know there's a lot of people who disagree with me, but people who broadcast their goals and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to accomplish, they're actually less likely to achieve it because they've already got the dopamine hit of people congratulating them that they're going to do this goal, and then they never do it because they've already got the reward. Well, two weeks before, or 2 days before I left for the USA Memory Championship, I didn't tell my mom I'm going to New York. I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to the USA Memory Championship. She said, oh, good luck. I told my friend Brian, I was like, hey, man, I'm going to go to this memory tournament. And I've been training diligently. I never told anybody. Here's the lesson I learned. I went and I won back-to-back years. I got my reward after. But I made a mistake. In 2011, I started memorizing everybody who died on 9/11. There's about 3,000 of them. And I told everybody, I'm doing this huge project. Guess what? Everybody congratulated me, and I didn't do it. And I don't think that's exactly the reason why, but I realized I was embarrassed that I didn't do it. So when I started doing the Afghanistan names, I'm like, I'm keeping this to myself. I memorized for 10 months. Only one person really knew, my coach, T.C. Cummings, my mental brain coach. He's not a memory guy. He's just a mindset guy. But when I realized, oh my God, I'm going to get this. I'm going to do this. I'm 85% of the way there. I went out and I got public with it that I'm going to do it. And TC told me, he said, Ron, you're going to be writing that wall, and there's going to be people who are family members, and they're going to stand there for hours, and they're going to wait, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, he's getting closer to the name. He's about to write the name. He's 5 minutes away from writing the name. Oh my gosh, he's writing the name. Let's go get a picture. Let's see our son's name on the wall. And I said, TC, man, I really appreciate you saying that, but I don't think that's going to happen, man. I said, if I just put a piece of plywood out, a plywood wall in a farmer's field, and I write that out one day, and I'm the only one that sees it, that's good enough for me. And I'll make this as quick as I can. February 28th, 2013, downtown Fort Worth, let me set up the wall. We notified all the local TV stations and all the local media, and nobody was there. And nobody was there but the media. And the media was there. And my mom and my dad and my cousin and my friend Matthew Mitchell. And I just started writing. And throughout the day, people started walking by the wall, and they're like, what is this? And they told them, and they're like, no way. And then eventually I'm writing, and I turn around, and there's this massive crowd behind me. And so many things happened that day. I'll tell you 2 quick stories, and then I'll see if you have any questions. But it's on to your point. I did not doubt myself at all that day. Zero doubt. I never had a moment where I didn't know any name. It was fluid. I knew everyone. People always ask me, does it get more difficult as you go? It does get easier as you do this. It actually got more difficult because that first time I put in so much work, and all subsequent times I feel like I'm talking too much. All subsequent.
Ron,
yeah.
keep going, man. This
Yeah,
is
it's
an
great.
incredible story. Keep going. I want to hear every word of this, man. I've been looking forward to this all week. So
Okay. Well,
if nobody else listening or watching this cares, I don't care. Okay, I want to hear this. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I normally don't give soliloquies. I normally have buttoned up answers, but I'm passionate about this story, as you can tell. But it got more difficult in subsequent times because that first time I'd studied for 10 months. It was my entire life. After that, I had to get back to work. So I would go work, and then I would go do the wall, only reviewing a little bit. So it got more difficult with time, but that first time was fluid. So I'm writing that day, and as I'm writing, I hear somebody in the crowd say Austin Staggs. And I'm like, that's bizarre. That's a name on my wall, and I haven't written it yet. I know they're not reading it. And I'm writing again, and I hear the name Austin Staggs, and I turned around, and I said, ma'am, I've heard you say that name twice. That's a name that's on this wall. Do you know him? She said, I'm his grandmother. I said, oh my gosh. She said, yeah, I heard about this on the radio, and I turned my car around, and here I am. And I said, ma'am, it's going to be about 4 hours before I get to his name. And she said, that's okay, I'll wait. And we got this grandmother a chair, and she moved that chair down behind me for 4 hours. And I finally turned around, and I said, ma'am, I'm 5 minutes away from writing his name. I'm sorry it took me so long. And she said, I'm glad it did. His mom is here now. And I believe his aunt or another family member, I didn't really know who that was, but they gathered around me. I began writing the names. And up until this point, it had just been names. It had just been data. And I started writing, and I wrote Sergeant, and then I heard the mom say, that's Barry. And that was the name I was going to write, Barry Jarvis. And then I wrote Staff Sergeant, and they said, that's Curtis. And I'm like, this is not her son. How do they know the names I'm about to write? And then I wrote the next one, and they said the next name before I wrote it. And then when I wrote Private First Class Austin Staggs, there was just hush silence. I hugged the mom, and she said, thanks for not letting people forget about my son. Well, I learned later that the reason she knew those names is those 6 men all died together. And I've become great friends with that mom. That was 13 years ago, and her name is Kay Jordan, and she hearts and likes every Facebook post I put up just about 13 years later. I will say one more thing happened that day, and then I'll turn it back over. But I was writing, and I turned, and there was a guy right there, and he pointed to a name, and he said he was a lieutenant. And I looked at the name, Cody Childers, and I'm like, no, man, he was a Lance Corporal. And he pointed to the name again. He said he was a lieutenant. And I said, I'm certain he was a Lance Corporal, and I'm just happy guy. I get my book. I opened up the book with all the names. I say, no, man, look, he was a lieutenant. And he goes, and this was the first time I looked at him in his eyes, and we locked eyes, and his eyes were bloodshot red with tears. And he said, no, I was his lieutenant. And I was like, oh my God, it just hit me what he was saying. He was saying I was his lieutenant. He was pointing to a Lance Corporal, a man who died under his command. And I said, oh, yes, sir. And he just stood there. We both stood there in silence, and he was crying. And he said, "I'm gonna go call his mom." And he just walked away. And I never saw him again. But stories like that happen every time, and I have so many stories like that. But it's been this experience has made me a better person.
So Kay, was that Kay's son?
It was her son.
Kay, shout out to you, and no words can describe how grateful we are for what your son and your family went through for our country. It's just amazing. So, along with everybody else, just amazing. So, question. Obviously, you're doing this, and you're training for this. I don't want to say practicing. I want to say training for this. I want to talk about the training. What the hell do you got to do? How many hours a day? What's involved to memorize this many names? That's the first question. And part two of that, doing it in theory and then getting emotionally involved. How do you handle that?
You're asking great questions, man. You're asking great questions that most people don't ask. The first one, how did you do it? That one gets asked. But the one that you just asked, the last one, doesn't. And I was shocked by how different the in theory and the actual thing work. And I'll tell you, let me answer the how first, and then because I need to say how first before, because it won't make sense otherwise. How? So, it's a technique known as the Mind Palace or the Memory Palace. It was developed 2,500 years ago by a man named Simonides who lived in Greece. And we know this because Cicero, 2,000 years ago, wrote about it in a book called some writings called Ad Herennium. And I know some history scholars may hear this and say, Ron, there's debate if Cicero wrote Ad Herennium. Okay, I know, but let's just say he did. So Ad Herennium, Cicero writes about a technique known as the Memory Palace. And here's the technique. You memorize a map of your house. So you see the stuff behind me. You number locations in your house. Now, what I'm about to do, you would, well, I'm not, I would say I was going to number the stuff behind me, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to number small items. You want to number large items. So let's use, even though you can't see my room here, let's use large items. Imagine you're standing in the doorway of your room. Well, Mark, I'll just ask you to do that. Where's the doorway in your room? Kind of point to the doorway.
Over there.
Okay, so imagine you're standing in that doorway and you're looking into the room. If you look to your immediate left, what's the first big piece of furniture? Is it a desk, a bed, a TV, a dresser, a couch, a cabinet, a picture, a table? What is it?
I got an easel pad there, but then I have a desk to the left.
Okay, so so the first one is which do you think you would see the first if you look to your left, the easel or the desk?
I would see the desk.
Okay, so desk is number one. Now let's go. We're going to do 5 here. Let's go around the room clockwise. What would be the number 2 going clockwise?
Pictures or plants.
Pictures. Number 3.
Big old light.
Light. Number 4.
I guess you could say some files in my retired Zoom studio that's wrapped up.
And number 5.
Closets.
Closets. So if you could say all 5 of those for me real quick.
Desk. Pictures and plants. Light. Zoom and files and closet.
Perfect. I'm going to give you
Oh my
5.
God, I'm ready. Put me in, coach.
Yeah, no, I know you are. My biggest thing is anybody can do this. So this is the core of the system. If everybody listening right now would number 5 pieces of furniture in each room of your house, and then when you're going to sleep, maybe you've got 20, 30 pieces of furniture numbered. You say those over and over in your mind, and you count them. This is the core of the system. Now let's go real quick, and we're going to memorize 5 things using these, and then I'll go back and show you how I use this to memorize the Afghanistan names and what I learned in theory. What I learned after 20, wait. What surprised me after 20 years of teaching memory that I should have known that I didn't know. So let's memorize 5 things real quick. What's your number 1?
Desk.
Desk. I want you to imagine a washing machine on it. The clothes are spinning around, the water's flying out. What's on top of your desk?
Washing machine.
Number
Clothes
2.
are flying out.
There you go. Great. The more you can see it, the better. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is pictures.
I want you to imagine those pictures are a dam, and behind that is water, and you see the pictures splitting and the dam breaking. So what's on the pictures?
Pictures is a dam behind it, and there's water flowing through and breaking.
Perfect. Number 3, what's your 3 location?
Number 3 is a big old light.
And what is your favorite food?
Used to be sushi. Now, I would say Peruvian food.
Peruvian. Did you develop an allergy?
Yeah, to bad food. So, but I just stopped eating sushi there. So, ate so much of it, I just lost the taste of it. So.
Oh, okay. I developed an allergy to fish over time. Okay, on the Peruvian, I want you to look up there and see a chef cooking Peruvian food. Why? Because I want you to be able to taste the food when you look at that location. But the word is chef, not food. So what's on 3?
Light with a chef on top cooking Peruvian food.
Perfect. Number 4, what's your 4 location?
My number 4 is my packed up Zoom studio and a bunch of files.
Perfect. So I want you to imagine medicine. You got NyQuil and it's spilled and it's all sticky. You've got pills and medicine over there. So what's on number 4?
Number 4, we spilled NyQuil all over everything.
Perfect. And last one, what's number 5?
Closets.
And I want you to see a man in a rowboat. There's a man and he's rowing a boat.
Man in a rowboat.
All right. So can you say all 5 of those?
Number 5 is a man in a rowboat. I want to make sure I keep the pattern going here, and he's rowing. Okay, so number 1 is a desk. It's got a washing machine where clothes pouring out it. Number 2 is we have plant and pictures, and the plants and pictures, there's water or waves. I forget. We said something to that extent flowing through that. Number 3 is a light. The light, we got a Peruvian chef, and that Peruvian chef is cooking some really delicious Peruvian food. Number 4 is my Zoom studio and my files, and for some reason NyQuil poured out all over. And number 5 is my closet, and for my closet we got a guy in a rowboat.
That's right. Perfect.
Right,
Perfect.
hey.
Yeah, and you see that's perfect. And we went very fast there, by the way. That was probably twice as fast as I normally go. But you did something very, and I'm not just trying to give you a bunch of compliments. You really did do something very smart at the end there, which it took me a while to learn. When I do memory demonstrations, and I do a lot, or I'll memorize a list of numbers or words for a group that I'm speaking for. If I miss one, it's always the first couple years I did this, it was always the last one, and I realized it was always the last one because I
Yeah, it
realized
makes
at the
sense.
end and I never reviewed it.
Hmm.
And you caught yourself, and you said, "Let me review this one
Yeah.
before." That's you. You're 5 minutes into memory training, and you picked up on something that it took me a little bit to learn. Uh, so this is the mind palace of the memory palace, and I wanted to use these words as an example because I never like using the Afghanistan fallen as an example.
Hmm.
Their names are sacred to me. But U.S. presidents' names, I love history, but their names aren't sacred. So, washing machine, the first president was Washington. Adam, the second president was Adams. Adam Adams.
Ah.
Chef, old Thomas Jefferson, right? Jefferson.
Hmm.
Medicine from Madison, and man in a rowboat, Monroe, Monroe. So this is what I did for the Afghanistan names. I numbered 2,400 locations: my house, my mom's house, my friend's house, my cousin's house, my favorite restaurant, my favorite bookstore. I went through a walk through downtown Fort Worth, and I took 300 photographs or 500 photographs. Then I put these 500 photographs in order that I took them in a PowerPoint, and then I memorized those. So I had 2,400 locations memorized. That in itself took a month. And then after I did that, I went through and I went back, just like we did with the presidents. I created images for the names, and I memorized the names that way. The only difference is it was 3 pieces of data per location, rank, first name, last name. We just did one, but you see how you
Yeah.
can do that. It would just take a little more time. So what did I learn that I should have already known? What I underestimated was the time that review would take. At the USA Memory Championship, I'd memorized 155 names in 15 minutes. So I thought, 155 names in 15 minutes, and I calculated out, okay, well, I'm doing 3 pieces of location per whatever, and I did all this math, and I calculated how long it would take me to memorize the wall, and then I added like a month just to be safe, right? And I was estimating 3.5 months. What I did not calculate and what I should have known was you must dedicate days to just review. So I would add 50, and then the next day I would review that 50 before I added the next 50. Then that next day I would review that 100 and then add 50. The next day I would review the previous 150. There were some days and weeks that all I was doing was just review. Review is a very overlooked part of the memory process, but it was crucial with a large-scale memory project. But that's how I did it, and that's what I learned.
And you kept that all a secret?
I did. Well, I wasn't really keeping it a secret. I just was never one that I didn't need the validation
Got it.
from others to announce my goal. But also, I had learned a lesson on the 9/11 thing. I had just made it part of my speech, and I don't know why, about the memory project that I was working on. And so people from my speeches heard about it, but my friends and family didn't know I was working on the 9/11 names. It was just part of my speech. But yeah, it was. I didn't keep the USA Memory Championship a secret, or the Afghan Wall. It was just I didn't need the validation, I guess.
Okay, now to the second part, and that's amazing, 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 to the second question, which is, what was it like? The cleanliness of theory is no match for the mess of reality, as the saying goes, when you were doing this and you had the emotional experiences. I think Ron forgot the question. Ron, okay. The second part of the question is, what was it like when you were doing this in reality, when you had, people stopping you, interrupting, your patterns? You have your emotions go, and you got adrenaline go, and all of a sudden you turn around, you show up and nobody's there but the news. Then you turn around and you got all these people there. I mean, there's so many shifts in emotions. What was that like the first time out?
Well, it was emotional. My mom was there, my dad was there, my cousin was there. I saw him as my brother. Now they're all dead, and so that was, looking back, that was the most significant day of my life. And to have them all 3 there is, now looking back, even more meaningful than it was then. As far as the memory process goes, the interruptions don't bother me at all. it didn't make it more difficult or easy. There, that
Yeah.
I had it. I went straight through. I had it. There was no problems. It was. I'm not going to say that it was easy, but it was simple, right? So people walking up and talking to me in news interviews doesn't bother me. It's just like you. If you were saying, if you were going around the room and you got to Chef Jefferson, and then you and I talked for a minute, you can go back to number 4 and pick up at Madison. It's not difficult. But it was more. It was very emotional. People just walking by. I didn't know any Gold Star families,
Yeah.
and Kay Jordan showed up. The Marine lieutenant showed up, and there was another guy who was on a motorcycle 30 miles away, and he got a phone call from Kay Jordan, and he turned his motorcycle around, and this Harley Davidson rider's out there. So Private First Class Austin Staggs was from Weatherford, or small town out near Weatherford, and when he was killed, his high school friend Clayton Beecham joined because his friend had been killed. What are the odds? Clayton went over there, and he died too. So these two buddies from high school, they both were killed over there. The motorcycle rider was Clayton's dad, and we talked for a while, and he followed the wall around on his Harley several times. I will say, I was riding that day. I started at 7 a.m. and it started getting dark. It was the winter time, February 28th. It started getting dark, and my cousin was back there. My brother, I see him as my brother. My cousin was back there, and there was a man. And my cousin said, I didn't know who he was, but looking at him, he seemed like a man who made things happen. And this man turned to he was a smart guy, and I never met him. He turned to my cousin and he said, "How much longer does he have to go?" And he said, "I don't know, an hour or 2 hours." And he said, "What are you going to do when it gets dark?" And my cousin looked at him and he said, "We haven't thought about that yet." And he said, that guy walked away, and he said 45 minutes later, there were lights like you have on the highway when they're working at midnight. Those powerful lights were lining up on the street, and they were ready to deploy them and put them out. And I finished just right before they were about to do that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'll never know who he was, but I'm always grateful.
Awesome. Kelly?
So great, Ron. It was just incredible. People hear this story and they're like, wow, what an amazing passion project. And was the motivation your service? Was it just that discipline? Was it that you have this mental toughness that is so extraordinary that 1% of people in the world probably have? I know it's a passion project, but what did it take? What was really the motivation?
The motivation for me was I wanted to I'm looking right now. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at my wall right now at a picture of February 28th, 2013. There's the wall right there. Worry, I'm hesitating on how candid I'll be. So I'll be pretty candid. I'm an authentic guy. The motivation was I'm a brain guy. My company's brain athlete. But sometimes my brain can struggle a little with depression or anxiety. And in 2012, I was definitely in one of those spots. And I wanted to take the focus off of me, and I wanted to focus on others who had gone through so much more than anything I had ever gone through. So it was partly selfish. It was partly a tool to focus on others, to help myself. But it was also that it was meaningful to me. That's where I served. I would go on a convoy and nothing would happen. Then another convoy would go out and they would die. And I know that because I'm the guy who reported on their deaths. And then I would go on a convoy and nothing would happen. And then that day I would go back to my desk and report on the people who went on convoys and died. So I did feel lucky in that sense. So it was twofold. Number one, to get my mind off of myself and put it on others. And number two, I just wanted to honor those guys and honor them. I got to live a life that they didn't get to live.
It's so profound. I'm actually just reading a book right now called The Shape of Joy, and it talks about when we're so looking inward all the time at our own self and our own mess and all the places we lack or we've fallen short, that does lead to depression and suicide. And it's when we have something outside of us and something bigger to look to that we have purpose and meaning. And so I'm thankful that you had that shift and that you also had the discipline and the mental toughness to do that as well. I know that you had to have some rewards and some punishments set up along the way for you keeping this up day after day. You want to share some of how you kept yourself going on the days when it was hard and you were tired and it was raining and you had to walk around the city, or how do you break through and keep going when it gets hard?
Well, I have my Navy SEAL coach, T.C. Cummings. When I was training for the USA Memory Championship in 2008 and 2009, I learned some lessons from him on that I used in the Afghanistan Wall. And two of the lessons were actually when I was training for the 2010 USA Memory Championship. TC, I texted TC and I said, TC, I'm not going to be training today. I'm sick. I got like 100-degree fever. I'm not going to be training. He said, if you're sick and you're not feeling well on the day of the tournament, are you going to compete? I said, no, I would compete. I've been training all this time. As long as I'm not contagious, I could compete. He said, oh, well, then this is a wonderful opportunity for you to see how you perform when you're not feeling your best. I'm like, you jerk. So I trained.
He was right, for sure.
Yeah. I trained all day that day, sick. As fate would have it, the 2010 USA Memory Championship arrived. When you are the new guy and you're not the champion, nobody knows who you are, you can go in relaxed. When you're the champion, there's a target on your back, right? Everybody was going after me, because anybody who's defending their title, that's, I'm not saying going after me, but there's a target on your back, right? So I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia. I had to be at the USA Memory Championship by 7:45. I fell asleep at about 6:45 a.m. and I slept till 7:15 at 30 minutes sleep. I ended up winning that day, exhausted, but I had trained for that, right? Yeah. I had, and TC said when I was training, when I was not feeling good, TC said, Ron, you're a professional. What do professionals do? They train when they're not feeling good. They do it anyway. And he was a SEAL. I mean, SEALs can't say, I'm not going to go on that mission today. I got a little headache. So that was the first thing. And I just remembered that lesson when I wasn't feeling my best on the Afghanistan Wall. As far as facing consequences, one day I told TC, I said, this was when I was training for the USA Championship. I said, TC, man, I wasn't training by 8:30 a.m. as we all agree that I need to be. So I just want to tell you that. He said, well, it's not a punishment, but it is a consequence. You have to face a consequence. If you don't face a consequence, you're going to be doubting yourself in the tournament. Who am I to win the USA Memory Championship? I can't even get up at 8:30 a.m. He said, face a consequence, wipe the mental slate clean, and then you can go in there with the confidence that you hold yourself accountable. And I said, what do I do? He said, that's up to you. He said, I hate cold water. That's what I would always involve cold water. And I said, you know what? I hate cold water too. It was 33, 34 degrees outside. I went outside. I jumped in the apartment swimming pool. I swam across it when it was 34 degrees. Now these days, ice baths are cool, but back then it wasn't. I swam across it, and I swam to the other side and I jumped out. 33 degrees. That water was in the 30s. I mean, it was cold. Wow. And, that I just faced the consequence. So those were the two lessons that I carried into the Afghanistan Wall. I will say this: when I wrote out that wall that day, a TV reporter or a newspaper reporter said, "This is a tremendous display of discipline." And I said, man, you're the first person to notice that. I said, this is not a display of memory. Everybody thinks, they look at it, they see 7,500 words and like, this is a display of memory. You just memorized five words. But it doesn't get any more difficult with 7,500 words. You just have to keep duplicating the process, right? That's discipline. That's not memory. So I said, man, you're so right. This is a display of discipline. The memory part is easy. But that's it.
That's amazing. My question is now, how did you pivot from doing this to then developing a company who empowers others. I want to hear how that came about, and then we want to hear about what you do with your company and how you help other people.
Well, I appreciate that question. So actually, I started my company in 1991. All this happened 20 years later. I never competed in memory seminars. I never did the Afghanistan Wall. No large scale memory projects until I had been in business 18 years. And the way that all came about was, I've been teaching memory seminars and selling courses online and that stuff since the 90s. Believe it or not, I was selling my cassettes through Zig Ziglar's newsletter.
I believe it. I'm there too, man. So I was doing that, so for my niche, so cassettes, CDs, all that good stuff. So
In the 90s, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's fantastic.
not as early as you, but definitely.
So in the early 2000s, I was standing at the back of the room getting ready to be introduced. I'd been teaching memory seminars for a decade, and the person introducing me said, "This is Ron White, one of the world's leading experts on memory." And it just hit me. I'm like, what? What have I done? What? Now, here's the thing. I had put that line in my bio. It wasn't his fault for saying it. It was my fault. But when I heard him say it, I'm like, I have done absolutely nothing to earn that. I need to either take that out of my bio or become one of the world's leading memory experts. And I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, I got to go win this memory championship. And then I looked at the records. They were memorizing a deck of cards in 2 minutes or whatever it was at the time. I'm like, that's insane. I'll never do that. Well, I did. I set the record. I broke that record, and a minute 27 is what I did. But it was an internal thing of I didn't pivot from my business to or memory or championships to my business, the other way around. But I did it because I no longer wanted to be a memory training salesman. I wanted to be a true memory expert. And I just fell in love with memory after that. Believe it or not, I was kind of in love with it the first decade, but I really wasn't. The last 2 decades, I've been in love with it. And the memory guy didn't memorize your question. That was a big part of it.
You're full of passion. That's more important than that. So I guess the other question I had is as far as what's the hardest thing you've ever had to memorize besides what we just went through here? What are these competitions like? I'm not even familiar. I'm sure this is big, but I have zero concept of what they would have as like a what am I looking for? What's the contest? How does that work? So
Yeah, so the most difficult thing that for me to memorize is music. I've tried to learn how to play the guitar multiple times in my life. It's just that's because I'm not a musical person, right? But I like music. I love listening to it. Country music. I've always tried to play Marty Robbins or Keith Whitley, and I always mess it up. But so that's always the biggest struggle for me, music. But as far as a memory tournament goes, the events, the USA Memory Championship when I competed, and it's still kind of the same. The first event is how many names can you memorize in 15 minutes. So they give you a sheet of paper. It has 15 or 10 faces on it with names underneath it. And every page is like that, photographs of people and first and last names. They take the paper away. They give you there's 200 people, 200 names and faces. And then they take the paper away and they give you a new sheet of paper. And it's the same faces in a jumbled up order because they don't want you just to memorize the names in order. They want you actually to attach it to the person. So the same faces in a jumbled up order, but there are no names. And you got to write them out. And you get 1 point for each first name, 1 point for each last name correctly spelled. If it's Stephanie with a PH and you spell it with an F or vice versa, it's wrong. You don't get a point. The second event is how many numbers can you memorize in 5 minutes? That's an event I held a record in. You look at the numbers for 5 minutes, you take it away, they give you another piece of paper, you write it out. I did 167 digits. That was my record. They got broken. The next event is so names, numbers, cards. How fast can you memorize a deck of cards? And they'll just shuffle it up, and then you run through it, you set it down, and then you pick up, and that's your time. I did 1 minute 27 seconds. Then you get 5 minutes to reassemble a second deck. And then the fourth event back then it used to be poetry. They'd give you a poem, you'd have 15 minutes to look at it, they take it away, you write it out, you get a point for each word. Then they take the top 8 people, the top 8, they compile your score, and the people who are in the top 8, there's normally about 50 who compete, so 42 get eliminated. The top 8 move on to the championship round. The championship round, you're in a row of 15 chairs. Each person is in a chair. You go backstage, all 15 people get the same list of 200 words. You memorize it for 15 minutes. You go out on stage. First person says, the first word's dog, passes the microphone. The second word's cat, passes the microphone. It's book, it's microphone. And then 3 people make a mistake. Those 3 get eliminated. The next 12 move to the next round. The next round is maybe more than that get eliminated. No, 3 people get eliminated. So the next round has 5. That's right. So the next round, or maybe, I don't even know anymore. They changed it so much. The next round is was at one point the most feared event in the entire memory world. Here it is. Chester Santos had a hand in inventing this, and everybody hated him for it. He was the 2008 champion, but he's a great guy. Here's the event. You're sitting there, and 5 people walk up. They say their name, their birth date, their city and state, their zip code, their phone number, where they went to high school, the year that they graduated, their mascot, their dog or their pet, the color of their pet, the name of their pet, their 3 favorite foods, and their 3 favorite hobbies. That person leaves. The next person walks up and says the same thing. That person leaves. The next person walks up and says the same thing. 5 people, and then they cycle around twice. And then the third time they cycle around, they say, okay, Ron, that girl over there, what was her birthday? And, they go through that. People get eliminated. 3 are left standing. The last round is they give everybody 2 decks of shuffled cards. And everybody has the same deck. They all memorize the same cards. They're in 3 chairs. First person says ace of spades, 9 of diamonds, 3 of hearts, 4 of clubs, 2 of spades, whatever. 2 people get eliminated. Last man standing, last woman standing is the champion.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Ron, most people don't realize how dramatically memory impacts their life. And if you lose it, really everything in your life changes. But the opposite is also true. So can you explain, what happens to an aging brain that is not doing memory training like you do? Because our audience is 50 and older, and this is when you start, walking into rooms and going, why am I here? And, we already don't have to remember so much. So what's happening to our brains as we age? We'll start there.
Yeah, so as we age, there's 2 things that I would say. First of all, the hippocampus shrinks as we age, believe it or not, or it can. The hippocampus is part of our brain that's responsible for long-term memory. There's a main thing that can stop or reverse the shrinkage of the hippocampus, and it's cardiovascular exercise. So being fit, staying healthy, going for walks. If you just sit around as you get older, your hippocampus is going to shrink. The next thing that happens with our brains is as we age, our processing speed declines. The processing speed is the amount of time it takes your brain to see data, process it, and respond to it. And it peaks in our mid to late 20s. By age 50 plus, noticeable declines are not unusual. So, but here's the bad news. Our processing speed declines as we age. The good news is our wisdom and strategic thinking skills improve. So, I went and competed in a memory championship at MIT in November. And I hadn't really competed in 5 or 6 years. And they called me on the phone. They said, Ron, we want you to compete in this. I said, are you kidding? I'm twice everybody's age. There's one person who's a freshman at MIT competing. I'm 3 times that person's age. I am not going to compete. Are you crazy? Like, come on, Ron, just do it. We would love to have you there. This was a tournament of champions. So it was by invite only. It was the best memory people in the United States. And so I was a former champion, so I was invited. I competed that day. They had me on processing speed. No doubt about it, they had me on processing speed. But I didn't win. But there was 15 or 16 people, and I finished in the middle. And I was pretty proud of that
Yeah.
because I think I had a good strategy. And I think I could have actually won. No. I think I could have finished top three. I think I could have finished top three. But what can we do? It all, as far as playing brain games or memory games, that's all good, and memory training, wonderful. But I really do believe drinking plenty of water, 100 ounces of water a day for a guy who's 200 pounds, which I am, eating healthy exercise, that's all going to help your brain and memory.
Okay, I know you do, well, pickleball. We've played pickleball, and you also do jujitsu. Is there a reason you chose that? Is that anything to do with your memory training, or there's other reasons?
I need to get beat up, and so I can't do it. I have a need. I don't fight people. I'm not a immature guy, but sometimes I get angry with people and I fantasize in my brain, oh my gosh, I would just want to punch that guy in the face. And then I go to jujitsu and I get absolutely destroyed because they're all better than me. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God I did not punch that guy in the face. So it is great exercise for me. It's a great challenge for me. It's a great source of friendship for me. You're going to have dementia if you isolate yourself, or that's one of the factors in it. So it's a social circle, it's exercise, it's friends. It does give me a little bit of self-defense, but that's probably only 20% of the reason I do it. The 80% is more of a healthy lifestyle and the friendships. But also, yeah, it does, when I'm frustrated and I'm angry at somebody, I'll go in there and get absolutely destroyed. And I'm so grateful that I did not act on that because I realized how good I'm not.
It's a great outlet, and yeah, there's so many levels to what you get out of jiu-jitsu. I love that. So for our listeners, food, supplements, any other brain health tips that they can do?
You build this mind palace out. That's what the mind palace is, the rooms in your house. That's it. So you do want to work on your good nutrition and exercise. The better cardiovascular fit you are, better your blood flow is. The better your blood flow is, the more oxygen that gets to your brain. That's what ginkgo biloba's doing. You can accomplish the same thing through good nutrition and exercise. I'm a big believer in that. A dehydrated brain can't focus. Drink more water. Most Americans are chronically dehydrated, or most, I should say, I don't know about most, but I'll say, yeah, most. A majority of them are dehydrated. Drink more water, go for walks, stay healthy, take a multivitamin, make sure you're getting your omega-3s. Now, if you do all that, your brain could be fresh and quick. You're never going to remember massive amounts of information, books, names, whatever, if you're not using a system. So use the Mind Palace, use memory systems to really catapult your memory.
Good. Love it.
Maybe Ron could help me because every time I park at a Walmart, I can't remember where the hell I parked when I leave. And this is consistent over the last 10 years since I hit 50. But obviously, we just proved that I can remember stuff because you just showed me with the proper system how to do it. But that's phenomenal. Well, I'm going to talk about trauma and memory. I don't know if that's anything that's in your wheelhouse or not. Certainly being in the service, and we thank you for your service. Absolutely amazing sacrifice, what you went through. Obviously you've probably processed a heck of a lot of trauma, but how much does trauma really affect long-term memory, in your opinion?
Oh, well, 100% it does. And I don't think, if any of the guys who I served with are listening to this, which they probably aren't because no man's a prophet in his own hometown. If any of the guys I served with see my name on a podcast, they ain't listening. But in case they are, they know that I experienced no trauma in Afghanistan. I did watch folks die, but it was not in person. We in the intelligence unit, we had drones in the sky that we would follow people and kill them. So it was a little sanitized. It still did, it was, you would think to yourself, man, that guy has 30 seconds left to live and he has no idea. And then boom, he's exploded. But it was sanitized because it was almost like you were watching TV. So
almost gamified, like if you were playing a game for the most part there, because you take the emotional or the human side out of it when you do it on a drone like that, for sure. So, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I guess. The first time that it happened, it was, it did. My heart was pounding and I was feeling my deep breathing. And I shouldn't say the first time. That happened every time. I did realize that's a human life right there. But to your question, I don't think there was no trauma to that, but I will say this. Stress is the worst enemy to your memory. You know, your body produces cortisol when you're stressed. Cortisol is good to get you through the stress of the trauma, but in long term, high cortisol levels are going to hurt your ability to think. And you know, if somebody dies in your family, you know, around that time period, you go through a breakup or whatever, around that time period, your memory was probably terrible. You know, you were probably, oh, where's my keys? Oh my God, I can't remember anything right now. You're leaving your wallet at the store because you're in this time of high stress and heartache in your life. And so that 100% does affect your memory, and the best things that you can do is just, you know, keep yourself relaxed, breathing exercises, positive mindset, get around friends. But trauma does impact your memory, and, you know, talking to people about it and really helps, you know.
One of the things the three of us have in common is no alcohol. You know, alcohol can really be damaging to the brain, and any other things we're doing that are really assaulting and damaging our brain, with, you know, alcohol obviously being one.
100%, yeah. I haven't had a drink in 5.5 years, and I was the kind of person, when I drank a little, I turned into a different person, and that person drank a lot, so I had to give it up.
Anything else that's damaging our brain? Environmental? I mean, stress is big, alcohol is big, but maybe things people don't know that they're actually harming. They're staying up all night playing video games, or, I mean, what are we doing to really make our memories worse?
Yeah, you know, 100% sleep impacts your memory, you know. When I got 30 minutes of sleep that day before the 2010 USA Memory Championship, I knew I was walking in there with one arm tied behind my back, right? So sleep, just being relaxed, going for walks, being social, which is difficult sometimes for an introvert, but that keeps your brain engaged. You know, the things like, and I know y'all have an audience that's more fit or striving to be more fit, so they probably don't smoke, but that's terrible for your brain, you know, because it shrinks the blood vessels, right?
Vaping.
So, what? Yeah.
Vaping.
So when I was doing some research on you for the podcast, Ron, I came across, I don't know, was it a TV show where it was with a handful of women? I don't know how many women was on the show. And did you watch this, Kelly, or no?
Was it Superhuman? Was it
Superhuman?
America?
So for those of you watching or listening, maybe you could share exactly how that went. And, you know, since we're all kind of single here, I got to know if this actually helped or not. Okay, so why don't you tell a little bit about that show real quick, and then we'll get into maybe speed round here.
Well, first of all, I am kind of single. If
Back about that time you were single, or no?
Was yeah.
Okay, so we're good. We're cool then.
Okay, good.
No, okay.
You know, I just, anyways, so yeah, so
You
that.
didn't tell Ron I ask tough questions here. So the show was Superhuman.
No, I know.
He had to meet all these women. Come on, Ron, tell everybody. It's a good story, man.
It is a good story, and so the show was Cal Penn. He's an actor, and Mike Tyson. So this show approached me, and they said, "Ron, we want to get 15 girls up on stage. These are all, like, you know, cute girls, and they're going to be dressed up like cowgirls. They're all going to have shorts and the cowgirl shirts, you know, whatever, like the Daisy Duke wore on Dukes of Hazzard or whatever, and it's going to be a country bar, and we want you to go up to these 15 girls and ask their name, a 10-digit phone number, which will be a Google Voice number, so we're not broadcasting real phone numbers. Their name, a Google Voice number, and you're going to ask them a fact about themselves. What do they do? Oh, I would do gymnastics, or I like traveling, or whatever. So, which was a modified version of the Tea Party event, which is the event I told you about in the USA Memory Championship, where 5 people walk up. So I had a strategy for it. You know, I just picked 15 rooms in my house, and I used a couple different homes. In every room, the first piece of furniture was their name. The next 3 pieces of furniture was their phone number, spread out over 3 pieces of furniture, and the last one was their favorite topic. So this was by far the most difficult memory challenge of my life, in part because it was on stage and Mike Tyson was over there, and Mike Tyson was talking the whole time. You got this, Ron. Come on, Ron. You're gonna get so lucky tonight. Come on, Ron. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm going up to the girls and I'm talking to them and I'm like, "What's your name? What's your ten?" And then TC Cummings, my Navy SEAL coach, I said, TC, I can get this 100% right, but to do it, I'm going to have to pause and I'm going to have to review a lot. The studio audience is going to get irritated with me because it's not going to be like a magic show. And he said, if you get it right, are the producers going to be happy? And I said, that's all they care about. They'll edit out the dead spots. And he said, Ron, there's a Dr. Seuss thing that Dr. Seuss wrote once. And he said, the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind. And so as I was going around to each girl, I took my time. I closed my eyes and I reviewed. I make sure I had it. There was guys in the audience who were booing me, probably in part because they thought I was trying to be this pickup artist, which is the way the TV show portrayed me. Oh, Ron, he's a ladies' man. He's a pickup artist. I'm like, please don't do that. I am not a ladies' man. I'm not a pickup artist. And they're like, Ron, this is part of the show. Take it or leave it. I'm like, okay, all right, fine, whatever. So I went around to all the girls. Mike Tyson was over there talking. The studio audience was getting restless. I ran around. I was like reviewing, and I'm like, Cal Penn said, do you need more time? I said, just a little bit more time. And Mike Tyson said, you got this, Ron. So I'm like, okay, Mike Tyson says I got this. So I go there, and Mike Tyson says, Ron, the girl in the red hat, call her. And I had a fake phone, and I dialed the number, and if it went, that means I got it wrong. And if there was a phone ringing, that means I got it right. I dialed the number, and I paused, and it went, bring, bring, bring. And the girl picked up the phone, she said, hello. And I said her name, and then I said, hey, I heard you do gymnastics. And they picked 5 girls, and I was just on pins and needles the whole time. And then finally, I was like looking around, who are they going to pick? And Mary Rabjumnek or something like that. She was on the show 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. She was going around, and she was actually the one picking the girls. So she went to the last girl, and she said, Ron, this girl. And when she pointed to that girl, I dialed the number and I just held my breath because it was the only one I was hesitant on. And then it went bring, bring. And when it went bring, bring, I just went bam. And I slapped Cal Penn on the back hard. That guy's a tough guy. I mean, I just slapped him hard. And I said, booyah, baby. And he said, Ron, you still got to say her name and their favorite topic. I'm like, no, I got it. I got this, man. And I said her name and her favorite topic, and then I picked up one of the girls. I danced with her, I spun her around, and I picked her up. I didn't win the $100,000, and I have some, that's okay. But I hit the memory demo, and that's what I'm most proud of.
That's so awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, I highly suggest that people Google or hit that video on YouTube or on your website is even better. Really fun to watch. So definitely fun.
Ron, we're wrapping this up, so we're gonna do a little speed round, couple questions with quick answers, and then we're gonna have you tell people how they can get in touch with you and your Brain Athlete and your Mind Palace program and your books and your coaching and all the things. So, what's the weirdest or most random thing you've memorized just because you could?
I know this is a speed round. At the World Memory Championships, you memorize shapes, just shapes. That is weird.
Yeah. What's one daily habit you swear by for keeping your brain sharp?
Walks and water.
What's the book you've read more than once and highly recommend?
Recently, it's been the Bible, and people who know me would not have. It's just been more recently, and that's somewhat of a cliche answer. Other than that, I would say a book called Mind Gym. Mind Gym. You can't. It is a great book, and I really recommend it.
Okay.
Let me ask you this: is there one person you could have dinner with, and live or dead, and why?
Oh man, I was asked this question on a podcast 10 years ago, and I answered my mom, my dad, and my sister, and I said, they're all alive. So that's a weird thing. But the thing is we don't get together hardly that much. And now that my mom and my dad are dead, I would say my mom, my dad, and my brother, because he passed away too, my cousin, but that's the three. Now, if it's a famous person, Abraham Lincoln, that would be nice.
Why?
How he dealt with that stress of the country at war. I mean, the country at war is one thing, but when you're fighting an enemy, but when the country is fighting itself, what a stressful situation. And the grace that he had to reconcile the nation and not punish the South after the war, but welcome them back in as part of the one country. I just thought he would be somebody interesting to talk to.
Very cool.
I know you've memorized a bunch of speeches and poems. What's a historical figure that you'd like to memorize a speech from, or maybe you already have?
I would like to memorize Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, and I think that's very, very doable. I don't know how long it is, but that's something that I think is a powerful speech.
Agreed.
If there's one thing you could instantly master, a new skill outside of memory at this point in your life, what would it be?
I'd like to get better at playing some type of musical instrument. I think it's relaxing, and I'd like to do it as a relaxation tool.
What is one thing people get wrong about memory or intelligence?
They just underestimate their memory ability. You know, ask yourself how many names do you think you could memorize in 10 minutes, and triple it. You know, take your answer and triple it. Most people underestimate their ability to memorize with a system, and they're always telling themselves they're not good at it. And memory and IQ don't have a correlation. I don't think. I think an idiot could learn how to memorize 20 or 30 words. And I've taught a few idiots, and they've proved me right.
I know you've worked with children also, and that's impressive. Yeah.
What is the favorite place you've ever spoken?
Easy. And it's not because of the location. Arlington, Texas. 15, 16 years ago, I was given a speech, and I looked up at the top of the stairs, and my mom had heard about the speech, and she went to watch it, and she stood at the top of these stairs and watched me speak for an hour, and I'll never forget that. And I never invited my mom to my speeches, or my dad, not because I was trying to hide it from him, but it was like, would a plumber watch invite his mom to go watch him fix a toilet? And that's just the way I always saw it. I just saw it as a job. I didn't see it as a performance or whatever, or something I needed to see. And I regret that so much. But that one day my mom took action and just showed up, and she stood there, is ingrained in my mind.
Wow.
That's amazing. So you've done incredible things. Is there one thing you still want to memorize, or something on the bucket list to accomplish?
So I want to keep the Afghanistan names fresh in my mind. And that's my biggest memory project right now, keeping them fresh. I have memorized the United States Constitution, and I have written that out. It's 4,500 words, and I want to get that back fresh in my mind. I want to get those two things fresh, and then I want to have one more last big memory project. There are 1,189 chapters in the Bible. I've created a course on how to memorize what's in all 1,189 chapters. Several of my students have completed the course. Oddly, the creator of the course, me, has not. So I'm going to complete that course so somebody can say, Ron, what's in Exodus chapter 20 or Numbers chapter 9 or John chapter 4, and I could tell them. It's possible. I've created the course on how to do it, and some of my students have done it. That's going to be my next project.
Incredible. Well, Ron, your story is so much more about memory. As you said, it's about meaning, which is even more important. And you've just shown us that sharpening our minds can help us honor the past, but really live fully in the present and stay mentally sharp, which I think everyone wants, especially as we age. And remembering 2,400 fallen soldiers is just incredible. And it's a good reminder for us that our memory is powerful, it is sacred, and it's definitely worth training. You've inspired us today to be sharper and definitely more intentional about remembering, and even more important, just not to forget what truly matters, which is family. It always comes down to family. So Ron, we want people to get in touch with you. Anything you want to tell us about your memory courses, your brain athlete, your Bible course, please do, and then where we can find you.
Yeah, so if you would go to brainathlete.com and click the free training and enter your email address, you'll get a free PDF from me that'll cover some of my best memory ideas. So brainathlete.com, click the free training, get that. You can also check out my courses there. If you are on Instagram, it's Brain Athlete. If you are on YouTube, you can search Ron White Brain Athlete and you'll find my YouTube, Instagram, Brain Athlete, website, brainathlete.com. Just remember that anybody can improve their memory. As we get older, we're over 50 here. I'll be 52 soon. I think I'm eligible right now for the AARP. Is that right? Or is it,
Yeah, I got my card a few years ago.
Or is it about to be? I think I'm the only guy who's about to be eligible or is eligible that has competed in a memory tournament and defeated 8 youngsters. Now, 7 defeated me, but I finished in the middle of the pack. So just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to lose your mind. Practice and you can get better.
Well said, my friend. Excellent. So one more time on the website.
Brainathlete.com, and make sure you're spelling it brain, not Brian. Brain and athlete, like an Olympic athlete.
Very good. Yeah, guys, go check it out. Memory is something, with dementia and everything going on, something that is a huge, huge, huge asset to hold on to. So, Ron, man, thank you so much. Kelly, you want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, we're going to put all of Ron's links in wherever you're watching this, on all the places, and you definitely go and check him out. Go to his Facebook and just watch him do a memory speech. It is incredible to see what he does, how he remembers names. It is really, really powerful. We want to ask you to share this episode, subscribe, and come back for our next show.
That's a wrap. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Kelly. We will see you on the next episode or listen on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your 2 biggest commodities, your time and your attention. See ya.